Hey guys, I'm Tracy. Welcome to Just Dig It Farms. This afternoon, we're going to take a look at the beautiful Echinacea, or coneflower. How cool was that, y'all? That was a red cardinal. It was sitting right over here, right beside me. It didn't see me sitting here, and it was sitting like right here, and I was watching it, and then it flew and took off and went right in front of the camera. That was super cool. Echinacea is also known as coneflower, and it's the immune boosting herb. Everybody knows echinacea because it builds your immunity system. I'm sure a lot of you, whenever you feel a cold or something coming on, you'll go to the drugstore or whatever and get an echinacea supplement and take it. But today I'm going to show you how you can grow your own beautiful echinacea in the garden and harvest it and make your own medicine with it. Echinacea is a perennial from zones 3 to 9, and it's a pretty hardy perennial. It needs about 6 to 8 hours of full sun to really flower and do well. It's a great cut flower because it has these long stems, and it's just a beautiful cut flower. Even when all the flower petals fall off and all that's left is this cone, it looks really pretty and adds a lot of texture and form to a floral arrangement. It's beautiful to grow echinacea in a prairie garden or in a wildflower garden, but it's also beautiful just to grow it in a cottage garden like I grow mine, or an herb garden. Echinacea is just beautiful in any garden, really. It's a great garden companion plant too because it attracts so many beneficials and so many pollinators to the garden, which is what we definitely need in our gardens. If you can see, you can just see all kinds of bees and insects here. There's honeybees, there's bumblebees, there's different kinds of wasps, there's little native bees on here. It is just buzzing with bees. It is wonderful. In garden design, a beautiful companion that goes very well with echinacea is, of course, lavender. I've got sage growing with it. I've got a lot of catmint all in around my echinacea. But something I don't have yet, but I'm going to add to the garden, is Russian sage. Russian sage is just so striking against this echinacea. I can't believe I haven't added it yet, but I'm definitely going to be adding that one this fall to this cottage garden. But in like a prairie garden or a wildflower garden, or even in the cottage garden, the grasses, the beautiful ornamental grasses, are so pretty with echinacea. And Shasta daisies and daisies are beautiful with echinacea. It's also very pretty with salvias growing all around it. So there's a lot of beautiful perennials that you can plant around your echinacea just to make a really pretty garden. It's also known as coneflower. That might be how a lot of you recognize the flower as coneflower. So let's take a look at this. See this one here? See how that's flat and the cone on it small as it first opens up? Well, that's called the disc flower, and this is the array of flower petals around the outside, and this is the disc flowers on the inside. And what happens is there's hundreds of them in there. When the bees and pollinators start pollinating this, it develops seeds, hundreds of little seeds. And then as it develops and gets bigger and bigger, you get these big cone shapes in the middle, and the petals start going downward. And that's how this developed the name coneflower. Echinacea is pretty easy to grow. You can grow it from seed fairly easy. I grew some this year. I just took the seeds, grew them in a pot in the little garden shed, and then transplanted them out in the garden. There's all different kinds of species and cultivars of echinacea. The angustifolia and the pallida echinacea has more of a tap root system. So it grows mostly in like really dry areas or in a dry situation. If it's a real wet area, then the roots will rot and it'll just go away. A lot of my research shows that the angustifolia is the more potent, the more powerful. It has more medicinal properties in the root. There's also the purpurea, which grows really well for us. It's probably the most hardy echinacea, the toughest echinacea that just seems to always come back when the cultivars won't a lot of times. But it does not have a taproot. It has more of a fibrous root. So I can grow both of them really. I can grow the angustifolia and the purpurea here because our soil is really sandy. So the angustifolia one is doing really well for me too. But from my understanding, the more that a plant, a flower is cultivated and different cultivars are created, the less potency they begin having. So the purpurea and the angustifolia are the ones that are said to have the most medicinal properties and the most potency in them. On harvesting and drying echinacea, you can use the flower, the leaves, the root, and the seeds of this plant. Now the root and the seed has the most medicinal properties in it, but the flower and the leaves have some medicinal qualities too. So you can actually use this whole plant. You can harvest fresh flowers and leaves and make like an herbal tea with it. It has like an earthy taste and it has a little tingling sensation to it. What I'm going to make with this echinacea is a whole plant tincture. So I'm going to use the whole parts of this plant, the flower, leaves, roots, and seeds. But I'm going to have to harvest at different times because the roots and the seeds aren't going to be ready to harvest until this fall. But right now, the flowers and the leaves are ready to harvest. I'm in central Alabama, zone 8, and this is the first week of July. My echinacea has been blooming since June, probably since the second week or so of June it's been blooming, but I'm just now having time to get out here and harvest some flowers and some leaves. So on the flowers and the leaves, you can harvest those your first year. Whenever you first start getting blooms and flowers, you can harvest those your first year. Now your root, you really don't want to harvest your root until it's in its second year. You don't want to take it too early. You want to give it a year to develop really well before you start harvesting the root. But your flowers, your leaves, and even your seeds, you can harvest your first year. You want to harvest the flower as they first start opening up. So like this one right here is a good one to harvest. It's a new flower. It's just started opening up. The seed head's not developed yet. So this is a good one to take first. And what I'm going to want to do is take it down to a new leaf development. You don't want to just cut it, like say cut it right here and leave that stem up. You want to take it down to where new leaves are. So there's my flower that I can use and some leaves that I can use. Now these, like this one, is old. It's an older flower and the petals have already started falling off. They're started getting old and the cone is really developed. You really don't want to harvest those leaves because all the energy and all the properties has gone into the cone and the seed development now. Now you don't want to harvest too many of the flowers. You want to leave plenty for our pollinators and our beneficials to stay in the garden and to have a food source. But you also want to leave enough to be able to harvest the seed heads in the fall, and so that they can reseed themselves and develop more of this beautiful flower in your garden. So you don't want to take too much of it. As this plant develops year after year, I'm going to have more and more and more and more and more of this plant. And I'm adding echinacea all throughout my garden. I'm adding it to my medicinal garden. I've got it all along the potager border here. I've even got some out in my orchard to attract pollinators to the orchard. So I'm adding it everywhere because I want to be able to harvest a lot of echinacea and use a lot of it for medicine. Plus I also love the flower. It's just so beautiful in the garden. Now harvesting the leaves is super simple. You just harvest the leaves. You just want to make sure that when you, like I showed you a minute ago, when you make a cut, you make a cut right above new leaf development. You don't want to leave stems just sticking up. And really it's good to harvest a few of the leaves before it starts flowering because a lot of the energy is in the leaf then. Now this variety is Echinacea purpurea, and this one is Magnus. This variety is Echinacea angustifolia, and this is also known as narrow leaf coneflower. Now I'm a little late here. I didn't get any of my flowers, but this one has already started going to seed. So you can see the seed head here is black and it's pretty dry. So I think I can go ahead and harvest some of these seed. Normally we would collect the seed in the fall, but these angustifolias have already pretty much gone to seed on some of these little cones. So I can at least show you how to harvest the seed today. The easiest way to harvest these seed is just to cut it off, and I take it down to the leaf. And then you can just discard this stem. But just take it and shake it in the palm of your hand, and the seed will just come off. And you can see the little seeds. And if you do it like this, it goes ahead and separates it from the chaff, and then all you're left with is the seed. So it really should dry a little bit more and it'd be a lot easier to collect the seed, but there's some of the seed. So what you're going to want to do after you've harvested your seed and before you use it, you're going to want to grind it up really good in like a coffee grinder. There's a real heavy coating on this seed, and you're going to want to grind it up so that whatever solvent that you're using to make your tincture, like I'm going to be using vodka. I use vodka to make my tinctures, but you're going to need to grind this up so that that solvent can absorb into the seed because of that seed coating. Now remember, in harvesting your seed, you may want to leave some of this so that it'll reseed itself in the garden. The cool thing about Echinacea is it's a hardy perennial, and it will reproduce itself either by reseeding, or it will also reproduce itself by multiplying at the root and spreading by the root. So every year you're getting a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more Echinacea. I'm not going to be able to show you today how to harvest the root because we have to wait till the fall to do that, but I'll put up another video this fall and show you how to do that. Remember, you're going to want to harvest the root, a 2-year-old root. So this plant, I planted it last year, so really this is its first full year. Now the purpurea that I showed you earlier, it's on its 2nd year, so I'm going to be able to harvest some of the root from that plant. So what I'm going to do this fall, when all of the stems and flowers and the leaves and everything is just kind of died back, I'm going to come in and harvest my seed from the cones, and I'm going to dig up a clump. And on the outer edge of the clump is going to be these little baby roots, and I'm going to take those. Those are really the best. I'm going to take those, divide them out, and I'm going to replant some, and then some of them I'm going to use the root for my tincture. The reason you want to wait and harvest the root in the fall is because all of the energy is going into that root instead of energy trying to develop these leaves and keep them alive, or the flower or the seed production or whatever. All of the energy is concentrated into that root, and that makes the medicinal qualities in the root really potent and powerful. This fall, when I harvest the root, I'll put up a little video about how to do that, and I'll show you how to make the tincture from the root and the seeds in the fall. But today what I'm going to do, I'm going to harvest some of my leaves on this angustifolia and some of the leaves and the flowers over on my purpurea, and I'm going to start making a tincture from those. And then this fall I'm going to make my tincture from the root and from the seeds, and then I'm going to combine the two together, mix the two together, and I'm going to have a whole plant tincture, which should be very powerful to help us ward off colds and flus and build up our immunity system this winter. On these really dark, black, dry seed heads, I'm going to go ahead and harvest some of these, and I'm just going to store them in a container until this fall, when I'm able to harvest all of them. See, that one's just falling apart. And I'm going to take a few of these leaves let's talk about the history of Echinacea. Echinacea is a North American native herb. It was used a lot by the Native American Indians. There's archaeological digs that show proof of the Lakota Sioux Indians using it back in the 17th century. The Native American Indians used it as an antiseptic and as a pain reliever, and also really as an antibiotic. They used it to treat poisonous insect bites and even snake bites. They used it to treat their wounds. They used it for sore throats and sicknesses. They even used it to help treat diseases like the measles and the mumps. So history dates back a long way with the Native Americans using the Echinacea. History also shows proof where other Indian tribes used it as well, like the Cheyenne and the Choctaw and the Comanche and the Pawnee. Probably it was used because it was so prevalently growing indigenous plant, just growing in their environment. What amazes me is, how did they know how to use it? That's what I always wonder, because you know, they didn't have encyclopedias or Google or cell phones or internet or schools even. So it just amazes me how they knew to use that plant, and how they knew what that plant would cure and what that plant would do, and even how to use the plant. It just amazes me that they had that knowledge. Now, the early settlers, the pioneers, adopted the use of Echinacea into their lifestyle. The Indians taught them how to use it. In the late 19th and early 20th century, conventional medicine was pretty barbaric. I mean, it was pretty dangerous. It was pretty horrific, really, the way that they treated people. The things that they did to treat people was really pretty violent and dangerous. It was pretty sketchy, really. There was a group of physicians that just totally did not agree with that kind of medicine and treatment. So they started searching out indigenous plants and herbs for medicine and for cures, and using botany like plant medicine and physical therapy and homeopathic remedies to help cure and treat people and to help people with their problems. That was known as the eclectic medicine movement, and Echinacea was one of the main plants that they used a lot in their medicines. So just like many of our other herbs that we've discussed, Echinacea dates way back in history, back to the Native Americans in the 17th century. So I think it's so super cool. Echinacea is most famously known as the immune boosting herb, or the cold and flu fighting herb. And it really does boost your immune system, and it can ward off colds and flus, but you have to catch them early, like at the very early onset of the symptoms, you know, getting a little scratchy throat or a little stuffiness or feeling a little achy or whatever. At the very onset of your symptoms, you need to start taking the Echinacea. That helps to build that immune system up and to fight off those sicknesses. Echinacea has a lot of other great properties to it too, other than just being a great immune boosting herb. It also has antibiotic properties, anti-inflammatory properties. It's high in flavonoids and antioxidants. It's really good for like skin issues, for eczema and skin rashes and skin issues. It helps with that because of that anti-inflammatory and antiseptic properties it has. It's a great pain reliever. The Native Americans used it as a pain reliever for toothaches and wounds and snake bites, I guess. I didn't know this about Echinacea, but it also helps with mental health, with anxiety and depression issues. So I'm assuming that drinking an herbal tea from the Echinacea will help with anxiety issues. And it's really well known for helping with a lot of respiratory issues: colds, flus, sinusitis, bronchitis, asthma, all those kind of issues. Now, I have to make this statement. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physician, I'm not a pharmacist, I'm not an herbalist. I'm just a gardener and a designer who loves to grow my own food, my own herbs, my own plant medicine. And I'm studying and researching all I can about how to make our own medicine and how to live healthier lives, growing organic food and herbs and creating our own medicine. And I just want to share the information that I learned with you guys so that hopefully you can be able to incorporate some of these things in your life and have a healthier, longer, happier life. But I advise you to please do your own research. If you have ailments or sicknesses, don't come off of any medication. Don't try anything without seeing your physician. Do your own research and do what you need to do to take care of your health and your body. This is the book that I want to share with you guys today. It's The Complete Book of Herbs, A Practical Guide to Growing and Using Herbs by Leslie Britnell, I think. But this was the very first book I bought on herbs. The very first one, a long time ago. What drew me to this book was the beautiful pictures, of course, but when you first open it up, it's got all these different herb garden design plans in here. And this was when I had just found my love for plants, was with herbs. Herbs was my first encounter, and I just fell in love with herbs. And this was when I was making my decision to leave the interior design corporate world, to go back to school and get my landscape design degree, and to start designing gardens. And I found this book, and this was just perfect for me. Just love this book. It was a great beginner book for using herbs that gives like all different kinds of information: how to make nosegays, recipes, how to make garlands, how to make wreaths, how to make arrangements with herbs, herbal decorations. Then it has a whole bunch of different herbs and information all about them. And this is where I learned a lot about herbs in the very beginning. So I highly recommend this book if you're just getting into herbs. It's just a great starting place. I'll put the information about this book in the description below. So in the description below, I've got a book list, and under that book list, I've got every single book that I've talked about in this season. I've got it listed there for you in the information where you could go find that book if you want to grab it. Go inside and get us something refreshing to drink because it's hot out here. And let me show you guys how I'm going to make my Echinacea herbal tincture. I'm just going to make me a refreshing glass of plain old water today. That's just plain water, but I'm going to add my Young Living Vitality Drops. This one's lavender lemonade. They also make a bergamot grapefruit, which is my favorite. But these have electrolytes in them, which really helps when it's so hot and you're working outside in the heat all day long. So all I do is I just put me a couple of squirts in my water, stir it up pretty good. I'll be honest with you guys, I really don't like drinking water, but when you put these vitality drops in there, it just really adds a good flavor to it, and I don't mind drinking my water. Plus it's also adding those electrolytes to my body, so whenever I'm working at Petals or I work out here on the farm in the heat, I always keep my Yeti full of water, and I keep these drops in it. I keep these in my purse, and every time I refill my Yeti, I add drops to it. Today I'm going to make a Echinacea tincture. And like I said earlier, today I'm making my tincture from the leaves and the flowers. And then this fall, I'm going to make a tincture from the roots and the seeds. And then I'm going to combine it all together, and I'm going to have a whole plant tincture. So I'm going to start first with stripping off all of the leaves and the petals and getting it ready for the tincture. So I've got my leaves and my flowers here. It's mostly leaves, but I'm going to take it and just break them up pretty good. Just kind of activate all the essential oils that's in the plant, in the leaves and in the flowers, by breaking them up. And also so I can get them a lot smaller and I can pack my jar pretty tight with them. Now these flowers over here, I'm going to try to dry those for our garden journal pages. And I'm going to take these seed heads and shake the seeds off into this bowl here. Try to get as many of the seeds as I can. Some of these probably just really weren't dry enough, but we'll get what we can get out of it. I'm just going to leave all these whole heads and everything in here and just let it dry. Maybe they'll fall off a little easier. But that's some good seed. And you can save some of this and plant some of this if you want to, so that you can make more plants, or we can grind this seed up and use it in our tincture. Probably going to do a little bit of both this fall. But for right now, I'm just going to let these seeds dry. When I make any of my herbal tinctures, I just use the folk method. I don't measure out so many herbs per cup of vodka. I don't do any of that measuring. I just use the folk method, which is very, very simple. Whatever herb you're using, whether it be echinacea, elderberry, whatever herb you're using, you just harvest your herb, gather it up. I like to crush mine up or break them up because I think that just gets those essential oils activated. And then I put them in a jar. I just stuff them in the jar as tightly packed as I can. So I just put them all in the jar like this. Then I just pack it in there. And then I pour my vodka in here. Now I'm out of vodka. Jean's stopping by the store on the way home today and picking me up some. So what you want to use like 80 to 100 proof vodka. Now you can make tinctures using apple cider vinegar if you want to. If you don't want to use the vodka, like if you're making it and want to give it to your children or anything like that and you don't want to use alcohol, you can make it with apple cider vinegar. We just always make ours with vodka. And I'm out, so Jean's stopping by the store on the way home and gonna get me some, and when he gets home, I'll pour my vodka in here. But what you wanna do is pour it, cover the herb, and then go about 2 to 3 inches more of vodka. You wanna make sure that herb is completely covered in the solvent. And then we just put a lid on it, and I put it where I can see it. Like I put it over here on my countertop where I'll see it every day, because you're gonna wanna shake this. Every day you need to shake it. You're gonna let this sit about 4 to 6 weeks, shaking it every day, and then you'll take it and strain off all your herbs and just have the vodka. To strain it, what I do is I get my colander, my strainer, and I put some cheesecloth in it, and then put it over a bowl, and then pour my tincture over it, and then all the herbs will be in that cheesecloth, and I can ball it up and I can squeeze out every ounce of goodness of that into my bowl. And then you're going to pour it up into a bottle. Then you can store it in a cool, dark place. Echinacea is not an herb that you want to take all the time or every day. It's just something that you want to take at the onset of feeling sick. If you're starting to get your little scratchy throat or a cough or a little achy or whatever you can feel when you're starting to get sick, you can feel the onset of it. As soon as you get to that point, then you need to start taking your echinacea tincture or drinking echinacea tea. You want to take large dosages for short period of time for your echinacea. So I get my information from Rosemary Gladstar, and she recommends that you take 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon every 2 hours at the onset. But Jean and I usually do about a tablespoon or so whenever we do it. And depending on how we feel, we might even do like a little shot of it. But what you need to do really, because this stuff is pretty strong, it's pretty potent, what you want to do is you want to take whatever dosage you're going to use and put it in a small glass of water, juice, or tea, something like that, just to help to take it down. And do that every couple of hours, so that it'll help build your immune system up and it'll help fight that off right at the onset. Now you always want to label your tinctures, your infused oils, If you're just drying herbs and putting them in a jar, you always want to label and date them. I'm telling you, you think you're going to remember, but you don't remember. So on your label, what you want to do is you always want to put your date, and you want to put what herbs you used, what solvent you use, like 80% vodka or apple cider vinegar, whatever you use. And I like to put on there the date when I think it's going to be ready, when it should be ready. So 6 weeks from now, I'll put that date on there too. So I'm not only putting that as echinacea, but I'm also going to put what part of the plant I used. I used the leaves and the flowers. Right now is just a really busy time for us. Busy at work, busy with the farm, busy with harvest, busy with projects we got going on. So what I'm trying to just focus on as far as the garden journaling goes is just gathering my information, getting it all wrote down on pretty paper, and drying some of my flowers. So let's take a look at what I've had in this book. Here's the lavender that I just put in here last week. It's drying pretty good, good and flat. It looks good. And my calendula, let's look at it. Oh yeah, it's drying real pretty. That turned out pretty. So these are doing good in this little book. So this will do for now. Now I'm going to get my echinacea in here. One thing to remember, this is something Terry and I was discussing. When you're drying your flowers, don't just dry the petals or just the flower head. You know, get the stem, get the seed pod, you know, get the leaves, get all parts of the flower for the garden journal. Oops. I'm pretty proud of this. I still want a flower press, but I'm pretty proud of this. And I love this old book. Okay, let's see how I'm going to do this echinacea. My flower petals are kind of wilting away a little bit. This one's going to be hard to dry because the little head, the little cone's so big. How are we going to do this? I think this one I'm going to take off and try to press it out. Try to press out these flowers a little bit, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how well this one's going to work because it's so fat. We'll see. You don't know till you try something. Okay. And I want that whole seed head, so I don't know what I'm going to do with that. I'm just going to set it there. And see who's got, that one's got pretty leaves and a pretty flower. So I'm going to take that whole thing. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but let's see. Maybe I'll just take the petals off. Just try the petals, maybe on one of them. I don't know. I'm just trying to think about when I journal this. You know, I want to name. I want to be able to label plant parts and, you know, the botany of the plant. So I really don't know what I'm doing, but I'm giving it a go. Any suggestions from anybody? Anybody got ideas? Let us hear them. I know there's a couple of awesome artists and art journalers, that's hard to say, out there. So that's already given me some great advice and tips. So if y'all know of any ideas that we could be doing here, let me know. Okay, I don't know how this is gonna work, but we'll see what happens. I'm gonna put my stack of books on top of it. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me on these Sunday afternoons. I'm having so much fun just sharing information with y'all about plants and recipes and journaling, and I'm just having a really good time doing this, and I hope you guys are enjoying it. I hope you're being inspired. All of you who are new to this channel, I'm so glad that you've joined us. Please go over and subscribe and like. YouTube likes it when you hit that like button. They'll share these videos more if you hit the like button. But go over and subscribe and join our community. We are developing an awesome community here of like-minded people. It has just been such a blessing to get to communicate in the comments with each other, and I've got to meet a lot of you at Petals from the Past. A lot of you have come out there, and I've got to meet y'all there. And we're friends on Instagram and Facebook, so I kind of feel like we're developing relationships here in an awesome little community. So if you're new to this channel, go over, subscribe, join our community. If you're enjoying these videos, then please share them with your friends and family, with anybody that's like-minded that would enjoy this kind of video about gardening and farming and herbs and plant medicine and animals and nature and all the things that we do around here. Go share our videos with them. I would love for our community to grow and for us all to be able to share with each other. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I just pray that you all have a blessed, happy, healthy, prosperous, peaceful week this week. This world has gone mad, I think. There's so many tragic, horrible things going on in the world right now, and I just pray over every single one of you that God put his hedge of protection over you, that he keeps you safe, that he keeps you healthy, that he keeps peace in your heart, keeps you all under his wing of protection. God bless you, and I will catch you on the next video.